Hello, everyone, and I hope all is well with you. This video is going to be based on an event that happened with a user on Reddit. This is what he said. Jane moved in with me after her rent ran out, and she said that she had confidence issues in the first 2 years of medical school. The guy talking about my life was a 29-year-old man who was in his final year of medical school. I had confidence issues in those years, and it was likely because of my constant struggle. Jane moved in with me. Blinded by love, I agreed that my 3rd year of medical school was as difficult as the television shows would have you believe. We spent 12 to 15-hour days at the hospital 6 to 7 days a week. She would pay me half of the rent and we would split the other half. Because Jane didn't do any housework, it was up to me to clean the entire place, from the floors to the dishes. Jane became lethargic and had sporadic employment and hours, but she was always prompt with her rent payments. Eventually, she ended up getting animals that she couldn't afford and expected me to take care of and pay for them. She would cut herself on her thighs when things got particularly difficult, but she refused to talk to a therapist or psychiatrist about the issue. Her problems became especially difficult. She would visit a psychiatrist to have her adrenal and annex glands filled. The psychiatrist would always prescribe her a higher dose of Adderall. Then she needed so that she could sell the remaining pills. When I found out that she had an opiate problem which turned into a heroin problem, the money for the rent stopped coming in. I discovered that she had an opiate problem which turned into a heroin problem. Through all of this, she refused to seek help for her addiction problems. A few months ago, she had enough of her science major and her study habits. As a result, I asked her to leave my apartment, and we fought and made up until she had enough money to pay her overdue rent. I tried to assist her in her studies, but my efforts were not sufficient, and despite the fact that she was a super senior, she had failed freshman chemistry 4 times. When I had the chance, I tried to explain to her that chemistry isn't like other classes in which you can cram the night before an exam in order to get an A, but she never paid attention. Our most recent significant argument came after a conversation about our plans for the future. I told her I wouldn't marry her because she wasn't emotionally stable. I believe I would have had a more mild reaction had I called her on her fat cow-like behavior instead. I told her I wouldn't marry her because she wasn't emotionally stable. The relationship came to an end a few weeks ago when I asked her to pay the rent or leave. I had to take some time off from my clinical responsibilities in order to deal with her departure. She is not overweight, but you understand what I mean. When I explained my situation to my attending physician, Romeritones, in a one-on-one meeting, he reprimanded me for my actions, but in retrospect, it was well worth it. He told me he understood and that he would not report me to the School of Medicine for missing my duties. Men who have full-time jobs are still reprimanded for not doing enough cooking, cleaning, and housework. When women tell men to man up, they are basically projecting their own problems onto the men. It's easier for them to project their problems onto males rather than this is just work. Don't feel bad about leaving Jane. My advice: women like her need to hit rock bottom. They secretly want to tell themselves to woman up, but it's easier to project their problems onto the psyche of a man. My friend who is a therapist believes that people with narcissistic personality disorders don't grow up until they are either on welfare or homeless and living on the street. Only then will they realize how terrible they are as a person, since she is probably a narcissist. They have no one else to blame but themselves, and as a result, they begin to look inward and recognize the errors that they have committed. Some people believe that women never end up on the street because society prevents them from reaching their lowest point. I believe that both men and women reach their lowest point at some point in their lives. Another thought experiment that might be interesting would be to consider what the world would be like if individuals were forced to subsist solely off of the income they generated, without the possibility of inheriting money or relying on the charity of others. Jane ruined her life on purpose so that you would pity her and come to her rescue like Captain Save-Who. You were supposed to be her doctor in a white lab coat, and I bet she couldn't fathom the idea of you casting her aside. The way you did it, many women who believe they have a man in their emotional clutches don't realize it when he leaves them. They believe their talents in manipulation are so good. That's it for today. Thank you for listening to me, and I'll see you in the next video.